Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those who are new, my name is Linda and I'm a product designer from Toronto, covering all things design, career, and lifestyle. After learning and growing as an individual, at some point you probably wonder, if I could go back from the start of my career, what would I have done differently? Or I wish someone was there from the start so I could have been a better designer now. Well, in this video, I'm here to give you a heads up of what you should consider when starting a career in product design, and hopefully they'll be helpful in some way or another. Just before I go into each one, I do want to remind everyone that these points are from my own experiences working as a designer, so if you don't agree, that's totally okay. All right, let's get into it. Number one is that quality is better than quantity for your portfolio case studies. This one is specifically around the case studies that you create for your portfolio. So you may be familiar with the process a new designer has to go through in order to land a job, and that is to learn UX UI design, whether it's through a bootcamp, formal education, or self-taught. Then you would apply that knowledge into creating those projects for your portfolio. Usually 3 to 5 is recommended, and then you would create your portfolio by hosting on a website platform, which then you would apply for jobs with the portfolio and resume that you've created. I've noticed from my own experience and speaking to others, people tend to finish this whole process in less than a year, minus those who are in formal education, so it's definitely doable. Although people tend to finish by the 1 year mark, it's finding a job that's the hard part. And that's because our portfolio is a reflection of our own work. And if that's not good, I'm sorry, finding a job is gonna be really hard. Even though this may be painstakingly obvious, I feel as beginners, people tend to neglect that part of the process, and that's just creating solid, good case studies. Not just the first 3 that you do and then calling it a day. So if I could go back, what would I have done differently? And that is to just take more time and put in more effort into the projects I was creating, whether that was real or fake. I know putting short deadlines on these projects seem very ideal in your career timeline, but it's not realistic and it could potentially hurt you later down the line when you are looking for jobs. On top of that, I would probably have created at least 4 to 5 projects at first. That way I can choose the best 3 to put on my portfolio, and I can guarantee you that the last 3 is probably the best ones just because you only get better with practice. The next one is that UI design deserves the same amount of love as UX design. When I first started out, everyone used to tell me not to worry about UI design because it's not that important in the beginning and you can always get better with practice. Although this is true, it's also true with anything in life. You can always get better at things when you practice, but you should never overlook it, especially if it's a core part of what you're doing, aka your job. And as designers, we all know that UX cannot live without the UI, so why prolong that skill when you can probably focus on both at the same time? In my work, it was really obvious that I lacked those UI skills, and I honestly believe it blocked my chances of landing interviews. So I talked to a few recruiters and they all mentioned the same thing, where they only have 2 to 3 minutes max to go through everyone's portfolios, and even though they're looking for a good process, it's what catches their eye that will keep them engaged and interested in moving forward with an applicant. And because our industry is becoming so big, popular, and competitive, having good process is just not good enough these days. The bar has been raised, and that's because there's just so much great talent out there now. So if I could go back, what would I have done differently? And that is to dedicate time to focus on both UX and UI design, making it a really big priority in the projects that I was creating. Another thing that I would have done is to follow more UI designers, go on Product Hunt to see what new products are out, and also follow what the big companies are doing. Then what you can do is learn from their work and apply it to your own, whether it's through UI design challenges or recreating it in Figma or whatever design tool that you're using. For those who have money, invest in yourself. Buy those UI courses. Those are the ones that are really going to help you hone in your craft and become better UI designers. All right, the next one is to work at more than one internship. I think internships are so underrated and wish I did more than one when I did. Whenever I speak to new designers, the first thing on their list of goals is to land a full-time role. And I've always wondered why not an internship first? And that's because the amount of learning and growing that can happen in these programs is so invaluable to a new designer, and I think more people should take advantage of it. Some things you get out of an internship that you wouldn't in a full-time role. Number 1, proper mentorship. This is really important as a beginner designer, and in a full-time role, you're either a solo designer or working with other designers who don't have the time to teach you. 2, it's almost a guaranteed case study because usually in these programs, they have set planned out projects for you to work on. That way you have something to showcase after the internship. 3rd, it's not permanent, so if you don't like the product, industry, or environment, you're not obligated to stay just because you're there for a set period of time. This is perfect for someone who doesn't know what they want to do in the beginning and wants to try out different things in the industry. And lastly, there's a potential full-time role afterwards. So usually with internships, it's a little bit easier to land compared to a full-time role. So if you do well within your internship, it's usually easier to turn that into a full-time role, and you know that you enjoy everything that comes with the job because you've been working there for a couple months now. So if I could go back, what would I have done differently? The simple answer is to take my time and look for more internships, rather than rushing into a full-time role that ended up slowing down my career as a product designer. Last but not least is to start a big company and then go smaller. This is more based on preference, but because I have experience working in both, if you're someone who wants to specialize or get really good at product design and not be a generalist, I would recommend working in a bigger company because it's a lot more beneficial in the start of your career. The nature of a big company has the structure and resources which helps designers learn the proper way and get the most out of their jobs. So let me explain a little bit more why this approach might be ideal. Being an entry-level designer, the only way you can really grow and learn is to be on the job by working with others. And in order to get that, you need to have access to those resources. So in these big companies, you have access to all these different people within the organization where help is readily available. Whereas in a smaller company, there's a high chance you might not get that just because that's the nature of the business. And since you're not getting that help, you're probably not 100% sure if the work that you're doing is proper or even right, which can be more hurtful than helpful in your career. With the proper structure, this applies to both your career and work. So with these bigger companies, they have clear frameworks around career paths for you to level up in your career and have the right design processes in place for that to even happen. So it's kind of like a 2-in-1 package, which is really nice. Essentially what I'm saying is that I think you can learn a lot more working for a bigger company for 4 months compared to working at a smaller company for the exact same amount of time with no resources or structure. As you guys may know, I currently work at Scotia Digital, which is a global company, and I can confidently say that I'm learning a lot more the proper way than I ever have compared to my previous jobs. But like I said, this is just my viewpoint from my experience, so take it with a grain of salt. At the end of the day, I'm still so pleased at how far I've come as a designer and could not be more grateful of the experiences and opportunities that have been given to me so far. I just hope that my realizations can be of help in your guys' journey into becoming successful product designers. But of course, if you guys enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to see when I post next, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!